Alright, so today we're going to start on Chapter 8, Practice 8A, where we're actually going to create floors for different levels in the hotel, because the hotel has different types of floors in it, as well as different locations. So that'll be the first part. We'll then take some of those floors we make, like the typical residence floor, and we're going to copy that to multiple levels. So what that'll do is it'll actually let us build like one template, and then we'll be able to copy that to multiple levels. And finally, and probably the second most easiest part, is going to be just creating a shaft opening for the elevator. That'll be something we'll work around. So as we move forward, you want to go ahead and open up the Modern Hotel Modern Hotel floors from your C drive. And we're going to just begin working on building these floors for the basement, ground floor, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to slide my practices out of the way. If you want to follow along, you need to open the practices on another monitor or open them elsewhere. Alright, so the first step we're going to do is we're going to add the basement floor to the building. So we want to go to our project browser, and we're going to go ahead and hit the basement level. Alright, basement level is all that block wall with some doors, door tags, and several columns. And we're going to pick floor and concrete 1 foot 0 inches. So we're going to go over here, click on our floor system, change our floor from whatever you may have to concrete 1 foot. Once we do that, we can use the pick wall command, and we need to make sure we extend the wall into the core, or you can draw a line, or so on and so forth. I'm just going to go ahead and use the pick wall and click the surrounding. Ooh, that doesn't show up where I want it. Let's draw this one with a pick line. And then since we know, we're going to pick the middle line of all these walls here. Notice the middle line is. Now I'm going to have to come back and clean these up. So I've made full boundary with the sketch. I'm going to use my trim extend tool right here, or TR on your keyboard, to clean up these edges. All I'm doing is clicking the bounding edge and tidying that up. Let's see if that worked. Yep. Okay, so we have our concrete floor for the basement. That's like the very bottom floor. Now, we're going to click in the empty space out here to release that, and you'll see we have a pattern on here. That pattern is a concrete surface pattern, so it looks like a dashed pattern. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the floor command again, and we're going to set the tile. Okay, so basically we're creating a little tile floor. It's basically like thin tile on top of concrete, just like we have here in the classroom. So we're going to pick floor again. We're going to change this to tile, and we need to offset this so that the tile doesn't sit inside of the floor. It has to sit on top of the floor by 1 inch. So you can hit 0 space 1. That means everything will be elevated by just 1 inch to consider the thickness. And we're going to trace this around the common areas in the basement, which will be the stairs, that open area, and this main area here. This back here is all mechanical space, and we're not going to worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and trace that boundary using my midpoints once again, because we'd like to carry that tile into the middle of the wall. You'll notice I'm just kind of drawing, and then I'll come back and clean all this up now using the trim command. Okay, so I've made a basic boundary like that. I'm going to finish that sketch, and now I get a nice tile pattern like you can see down here. And if you wanted to change the color or just double check that you were seeing some difference, you can change this to shaded or so on and so forth. But I go back to hidden line. I like seeing a basic black and white drawing. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open the floor plan with the pool. And we're going to zoom in here and we're going to click on these grid lines and elevation markers, and we want to hide these. So I'm going to hide in view by category. And then these ugly elevation markers that take up a ton of space, we're going to hide in view by category. And now we get a clean outline. So what we need to do is we need to modify this boundary around the pool to look like the boundary in the book, right? And that means we're going to carve out and draw this kind of shape around there. There's no exact dimensions, so we just want to get close. So let's edit that boundary, and we're going to start drawing. So I'm just going to start drawing from where I see their lines in the book. Notice how you get some nice dash lines that help give you assistance. Hit escape whenever you run into that scenario of the command still connecting or staying started. And delete that leftover line. So now when you hit finish this floor, it's going to ask you, do you want to attach these floors, these walls, to the bottom of the floor? And that's not something we like to do usually. Interior walls, we may have them go to the bottom of the floor, but typically any major walls are not going to go to the floor, so we want to say no there. And so we can click off. Right now we have this big floor around our building, and if you go to your 3D view, you need to verify that you've got a floor showing there. So what we just provided was this floor here. Hit WT, clear up a few things. Alright. Now, the next thing we want to do is go to Floor Plan 2, and we're going to reveal hidden elements. So I'm going to close this out. We got Floor Plan 2 open here, or you can access it through your project browser. And we want to hit Reveal Hidden Elements. That's going to be your little light bulb at the bottom. And we need Reveal Hidden Elements so that we can find this walkway, because we're going to create the typical floor for the hotel. And so we're going to click on the CAD file, maybe a piece of this text right here. And we're going to right click on it and say unhide in view elements. And now if we close our hidden elements view, we'll have all of our pathways like we need. So now the next thing we want to do is build a floor that's a generic 12-inch floor, and we're going to draw this into the middle of the wall like we typically do. So let's go ahead, go to floor, generic concrete, or generic 12-inch. And you can use pick wall, or I'm going to use the pick line command. I always trust that one, or I draw it myself. We're just going to trace our boundary and pay attention when we move around the stairs. We're going to go forward here, and then we got this little jog. You got to catch that, because this is the balcony of the hotel. So this is a little tricky point here in the practice you want to make sure you follow. And of course we want to pick our balconies, because we're creating a typical floor here. And we could have made one and copied it over however you'd like, but that's the basic outline you should have. Now, the key to cleaning this up right here is going to be a couple things. One, it's going to be the split element tool, because we have one line here, but we're going to need to split it at the doorways in order to trim appropriately. So we're going to click this little button right here, cuts an element into half, or 2 points, and we're just going to go ahead and cut, doesn't matter where, just as long as you're splitting the line into those areas. Hit escape to close the command, and we're going to use the trim extend tool to start cleaning these guys up. And now I'm going to come back here and make sure I've got all my corners. So one thing I always do is zoom in on my corners, make sure they're good. Like here we've got some issues with the sketch. We don't like stuff like that. Nice clean 90-degree corners. Probably got one over here. Okay, and let's see if that's going to work for us.
Cindy Carter and Paul Hagan, please report to the counseling office.
Okay, so we've got our main floor drawn. We're going to hit finish, and you'll notice if you highlight that floor, it's all shown. So the next thing we want to do is hide that CAD file again. Now that we've used it for reference, we come back, hide element. So now we've made a nice floor. We've got the balcony shown. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take and we're going to copy this floor and all the walls to all the other selected levels. So this will be an interesting part, because when you have a building that has copied components like restrooms or stairs or certain common walls, this is where Revit makes your life even easier. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select the new floor, and we're going to copy this floor to all other floors. So let's go ahead and take this floor right here, and we're going to say copy to clipboard, or you can hit Control-C. And you click down on paste, and you click align to selected levels, because we want to paste this floor to all the way up to floor 8. So we're going to say align to selected levels, and you can hold Control and keep clicking all the way to 8, or you can click 1 and then hold Shift, and then you click down to the bottom and it does it. Or you can even click and drag down to floor 8. And we'll say OK. And right now we don't see any difference. So we're always going to go back to our 3D view. And you'll notice we've brought all of our floors up. Right? We've now created all the typical hotel floors. But we're missing the doors, the walls, all those components we've got to bring in. So I'm going to hit WT so I can kind of see some of these things as they're happening. It's always good to kind of back check. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select everything that needs to copy to each floor. Okay, so those things that don't go all the way up to floor 8. Those would be all the doors, all the interior walls, but none of the stair doors. Okay, none of the stair doors, none of the stair walls are going to go. We made those go all the way up. So what the easiest way to do that is to click, make a window over everything in this area. Right? You can drag a right window or left window. I drag a right window because it only picks what's inside the window. And then we're going to filter that. And we want to filter that down to just doors, door tags, and walls. So we'll say OK. And that's still even more than we want, because if you notice, we don't need to copy up these big exterior walls or these shaft walls from the elevators. So one key trick is to hit, if you hold the Shift button, it deselects things for you in your profiles and in your model. So notice my minus symbol comes up, or if you hold Control, it adds things. Shift, deselect, Control, add. So I'm going to start deselecting these exterior walls. Look at that, how it immediately gets rid of some of this stuff I don't need to copy. Like here, I don't need that wall, but everything else I want to bring with me. I want to bring all the doors. Let's even bring this door with me too. I'm going to hold Control to pick that. And that looks like it's everything in the selection. So we're going to do the same step with that. We're going to copy that to clipboard, and then we're going to paste align to selected levels, or views even, right? We could do selected views, and then we just pick those views or floors again. So we're going to pick floors 3 through 8, and we'll say OK. And watch over here, it's going to add all these, and you may get an error message, you may need to delete some instances, but you just want to make sure you selected the proper things. So look at there, now we've got our entire hotel guest rooms, floors 3 through 8, all done within just a few clicks, selecting and adding. At this point I would save if I were you. So, the next thing we want to do is we need to look at the floor slabs that extend to the balconies. They're not joined with the walls, and so they don't display a line right here. There should be a line right there because this balcony is cutting in to the exterior wall. So what we need to do now is we need to join geometry and select multiple join. And then we're going to pick those floors so that it creates a good connection between all of those. Because this is not a good correct look. We want it to look like what we see down here on the floor where we have these edges shown. There's no edges shown here. So we go into our Modify tab. And over here is the Join Geometry button. We want to click down on it. We want to click Join Geometry. And we're going to pick multiple join because we're not just joining one balcony. We're going to do all these balconies to the exterior wall. So I'm going to click multiple join. I'm going to click on my wall. And I'm going to start cutting these slabs into the wall. Now it may seem minor, but it's something that visually makes a lot of sense. And in construction, they want to see those lines to define the edge. Once you've done that, you can hit escape, right? Click out in the blank space somewhere. And then you'll notice we have some lines here now. That's beautiful. It's exactly how it should look. Okay. The next and last step is going to be adding the elevator shaft openings and adding the components to extend our drawing. Show the elevator shaft and then show the floor restrooms. So the first thing we want to do is define that elevator shaft opening. And we're going to go to floor plan 1 to find that. I hit WT once again, brings all my monitors up real nice. And this is the elevator shaft. We need to cut a hole through all the floors, all the way up through the building. So we're going to go to architecture, and we're going to look over here in the opening area, because in openings we have wall openings, dormers, face openings, but we just want to do an elevator shaft. And you can even see the animation or the view for that. So we're going to click elevator shaft. We want to pick the boundary lines. And we want to draw only around the open area. So this time I'm just going to pick line. And I'm going to draw from these edges. Because a shaft can't go through these columns, right? An elevator cannot go through these columns. Oh, let me clean that up. So this is where you might be zooming in to making sure. Now when it highlights all those lines, it means you're touching. And so we end up with an opening like this. Now in the draw panel, we're going to do a symbolic line. Okay, we just created a boundary line for the opening, and then we need to create a symbolic line that is a symbol that tells everyone this is open to below, right? There's no floor there. Symbolic line is just a drawing. And then we're going to clean and trim up these lines. And we're going to change the base constraint to floor 1, the base offset to -1, and the top constraint up to roof. Okay? What that does is that cuts out everything in the building. Now if you look in our 3D view, it's showing in 3D this footprint we're about to basically create a void all the way through the building. So we're going to hit finish, and you'll even see that kind of breaking through.
Please call 31101.
So the next thing we want to do is change the visual style. We're going to go to the other floors. Let's make sure that worked. Open up floor 2, and you'll see that even shows up, right? We even get a symbolic line for that shaft opening. We could even take a look here in our 3D view, and when you hover over that elevator shaft, you actually see down into the building, right? That's where all the elevators will come through. And so the next step we want to do is we want to save that project, and we're going to add the drainage for the bottom of the building. Okay? And that's for the restrooms in the bottom floor. So we're going to go ahead, we've got our 3D view open. We're not going to necessarily need that for this. We've got our first plan open, but we specifically want to go to the restrooms. And we want to expand, click on your crop region right here. We're going to expand this crop region to include the janitor's room here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some drains in these restrooms so that there's no water issues inside of there. And to do that, we got to get rid of these elevations. They're no good. We're going to hide that category. Now we've got a clean look. Now if we want to select the floor, we could do this a couple ways. One way is we could open up another plan like it shows, or if you take your mouse and you make a left window, right to left instead of left to right, it'll pick everything your mouse intersects with. And if I hit filter, let's see what we get here. Let's open up floor plan 1 with pool. We're going to pick this floor, and then we can hit Control Tab at the same time, right? And it cycles through all of our open windows. We're going to hit Control Tab until we get back to our restrooms. And what we're going to do is we're going to create and add split lines. So we're going to click Add Split Line, and we're going to draw split lines around the restrooms. And we're just creating split lines, which mean this is where the floors are going to be cut and you'll have different slopes. Now in the shape editing panel, we're going to click Add Point in the center of each of these rooms and make it -1/2 inch. So we're going to do Add Point and watch. Let's see if it'll find. And you just want to get as close as you can to the center. So let's say that looks pretty good. We're going to place that point. We're going to do that in each one of these. Oh, one step back. Hang on. We need to change our elevation. Once we click Add Point, we want to change that elevation to -0.1/2. And then you're going to place that in the middle. Notice how it makes angles for me. It automatically. You can even get intersections to show up. Let's do something right there. Okay. Now we've created all of those elevations. And what you've got there is some slope floors with drains in the middle. And that will be your practice. Save your project and notify me to check off your work to begin questions or Chapter 9.